How to save money with low income. Break the paycheck to paycheck cycle for good. Imagine looking at your bank statement and feeling that punch in the gut that doesn't come from one specific expense, but from the sense that you've lost control. Not because you don't work hard, but because your money seems to disappear before it even arrives. This is the moment most people give up, but it's exactly where the real turning point begins, the one almost no one has the courage to face. The truth is simple. Living paycheck to paycheck is not a personal failure. It's a system built to keep you surviving, not advancing. But that doesn't change the fact that you're paying a high price for staying stuck in this loop. Every month, you avoid redefining your financial habits. You hand over your freedom on a silver platter. That's not drama, that's math. Today, you'll understand what actually holds you in this cycle, and it has nothing to do with not making enough. It has everything to do with patterns you repeat without noticing, habits that drain your future, and a financial mindset shaped for short-term survival. That's exactly why this video exists. You're not here for cliché advice about cutting coffee. You're here to learn how to build power over your money, even when it feels like there's no room to breathe. We're going to dismantle the triggers that sabotage your income, expose the bad money habits that steal your energy, and build strategies that work even with low income, because saving money is not a privilege. It's discipline and clarity. If you feel like you're always running after your life and never catching up, this is the moment where everything shifts. Not because I'm promising ease, but because I'm going to show you exactly what you need to confront without excuses. Once you understand why your financial life is stuck on autopilot, you'll see that the exit has always been there. It just demands honesty, strategy, and action. This is the conversation no one ever had with you until now. The hidden trap. Why your money disappears before you even touch it. You think your problem is how much you earn, but that's the easiest narrative for you to hide behind. The real trap is invisible and much deeper. What keeps you stuck isn't the size of your paycheck. It's what you do with it in the first second it hits your account. Most people live on autopilot, repeating patterns programmed long before they ever had financial awareness. You learn to spend before you learn to think about money, and that creates a survival loop where every month becomes a race to cover holes you don't even realize you're creating. The first mistake is believing nothing is left over. That sentence is comfortable because it removes the responsibility of looking at where your money is actually going. There are small leaks you've normalized, habits that seem harmless, but that collectively lock you into stagnation. Overspending is not a purchasing problem, it's a consciousness problem. When you spend to ease anxiety, feel temporary control, or escape discomfort, you trade your future freedom for a few minutes of dopamine. The uncomfortable truth is that living paycheck to paycheck is rarely caused only by low income. It's fueled by micro decisions you make daily without noticing. You're not paying attention to the timing of your expenses, their order, or their real priority. You pay first what screams the loudest, not what actually matters. And when you manage your money reacting to chaos, you lose the chance to direct it towards stability, saving, solid financial habits, and long-term mindset. That's why saving feels impossible. You're trying to start at the end when you should be starting at the beginning. Saving money doesn't happen with what's left. It happens with what you protect first. And here's the point. As long as you keep saying, "I know I need to save, it just doesn't work," you'll keep repeating the same cycle. That sentence is the anesthesia that stops you from seeing the structure that's sabotaging you. Change begins when you face the fact that the problem isn't a lack of opportunity, but a lack of strategy. And when you shift your angle, you start seeing things that were invisible before. That's the exact moment your financial mindset begins to reprogram itself. When you name the leaks, recognize your triggers, map your patterns, you stop being a hostage to the month and start building choice, breaking the cycle. The first real shift that changes everything. You won't break the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle with willpower. Willpower burns fast, hits hard, and dies early. What actually transforms your financial life is structure. And structure begins with an uncomfortable decision. Stop operating from the fear of running out and start operating from the clarity of what needs to exist first. Without that, any attempt to save becomes improvisation, and improvisation always loses to chaos. The first major shift is simple, but far from comfortable. You need to build a system where saving comes before anything else, not as a symbolic gesture, but as a non-negotiable commitment. This means setting aside an amount the exact moment the money arrives, even if it's small. The size doesn't matter in the beginning, the priority does. When you do this, you create a powerful internal message: I decide where my money goes. This psychological switch is the breaking point that pulls you out of survival mode. Then comes the part most people avoid: mapping your essential expenses and cutting the excess. But you won't do it like most people do, with guilt and shame. You'll do it strategically. Instead of asking, "What can I cut?" you ask, "What is truly indispensable for my plan?" This shift changes everything. Because now your expenses aren't enemies, they're tools. And whatever doesn't serve the plan is removed without drama. The emotional rigidity you have around certain expenses is resistance, not necessity. Next, you need to create predictable cash flow. People who live in financial chaos think unpredictability is normal, but it's a habit, not a reality. When you organize payments by priority and timing, you take the month off autopilot. You stop putting out fires and start acting before they even exist. This gives you something people trapped in paycheck-to-paycheck living rarely experience: mental margin. With mental margin, you make better decisions, resist impulses, and see opportunities more clearly. And here's the strongest trigger of this chapter. The cycle changes the moment you take full responsibility for the flow of your money. Not for how much you earn, but for the path your money takes. Whoever changes the path changes the destination. This becomes the foundation for the next step, where you'll learn how to build stability even when your income doesn't increase immediately. This is the kind of shift that separates those who keep surviving from those who finally start building. Building stability even when your income is low. The framework that finally holds stability isn't built when you earn more. Stability is built when you finally design a structure that stops your money from slipping through your fingers every month. Low income is the favorite excuse to keep everything the same, but it's exactly in that scenario that discipline creates advantage. People who move forward don't wait to earn more to organize their lives. They organize first, grow later. It's counterintuitive, but it's the exact reason some escape the struggle while others sink deeper. The foundation of stability begins with something most people neglect: minimum predictability. And you only get predictability when you turn your essential expenses into real numbers, not feelings. Do you actually know how much your month costs, or do you just feel like it costs too much? Without this number, you'll always believe saving is impossible. With it, you finally understand the terrain you're standing on. The unknown keeps you stuck. Clear data sets you free. Then comes the second pillar: micro-saving. This concept gets ignored because the ego wants big results, but that desire is exactly what keeps you stagnant. Micro-saving is the habit of protecting small amounts consistently, creating a psychological cushion before it becomes a financial one. When you watch a small amount grow, your mindset shifts. You stop believing saving money is a privilege and start understanding it as a system. Small wins build big change because they reinforce identity. When you behave like someone who takes care of their money, your life starts aligning with that behavior. The third pillar is eliminating friction. What sabotages you isn't lack of intention, it's too many obstacles. If you have to think too much to save, you won't save. If you need to remember manually, you won't remember. If you have to resist temptation all the time, you'll lose. Stability depends on automation. Automate savings, automate payments, automate everything that doesn't require your emotional energy. This isn't convenience, it's strategy. The fewer decisions you need to make, the fewer mistakes you make. The predictability you crave shows up only when everything that can be automatic stops relying on your willpower. And the fourth pillar is simple: protect yourself from yourself. You're not fighting money, you're fighting impulses, and that requires boundaries. Separate accounts, clear rules, barriers between you and impulsive spending. This isn't about restricting your life, it's about preventing 10-second decisions from ruining your next 3 months. When you create boundaries, you create stability. And when you create stability, you finally create space to grow. That space is the bridge to the next chapter, where you learn how to expand your financial life consciously and progressively, without relying on luck or miraculous income boosts. Expanding without breaking. How to grow your financial life. Even when everything feels tight, growth doesn't start when life gets easier. Growth starts when you stop waiting for the perfect moment and begin using what you have with precision. Most people trapped in paycheck to paycheck living believe expansion requires more income, but that belief is the very barrier that keeps them stuck. Expansion isn't about earning more, it's about upgrading how you use the little you already have. When you think you need a miracle, what you actually need is strategy. The first step in expanding is recognizing that every financial breakthrough begins with awareness, not inspiration. Awareness. You need to know your patterns better than you know your excuses. You need to understand your emotional triggers, your impulse points, and the exact situations where you sabotage your own progress. Expansion starts by removing the leaks that kill your momentum. You don't grow by adding things, you grow by removing what keeps you small. The second step is learning to redirect your energy. If you want your financial life to expand, your decisions must stop sendo guiadas pelo curto prazo. Impulsos consomem sua margem, clareza devolve sua força. The moment you start asking, does this choice move me towards stability or away from it? You immediately elevate the quality of your decision-making. People grow when they stop acting como alguém desesperado para aliviar o estresse do mês e começam a agir como alguém comprometido com liberdade financeira real. Growth isn't an event, it's a mindset shift. Next comes the strategy almost nobody applies: progressive upgrades. Most people wait to have a big raise or a sudden opportunity to improve their situation, but real expansion is built through consistent micro-improvements. Increasing your savings rate by even a small percentage, eliminating one unnecessary recurring expense, or shifting one habit that drains you creates compounding results. You don't need dramatic change, you need repeatable improvements. When your actions compound, your life grows even in tight conditions. Finally, to expand sustainably, you need a clear vision, one that isn't based on fantasy, but on structure. Visualize the life you're trying to build and align your habits with that vision. Your mind needs direction, and your money follows your mind. Without vision, you react. With vision, you build. This is the moment where your financial identity begins to evolve. And once your identity shifts, your behavior follows. That identity shift is the bridge to the next chapter, where we turn growth into momentum and momentum into real transformation. Turning momentum into transformation. How small changes become a new financial reality. Momentum isn't magic. Momentum is proof that you finally stopped negotiating com seus velhos padrões e começou a agir como alguém que quer resultado de verdade. The real transformation doesn't happen when you make one big decision. It happens when you repeat small decisions long enough for them to rewrite who you are with money. That's where most people fail. They want change without consistency, progress sem disciplina, resultado sem desconforto. Transformation demands the opposite. The first element of momentum is repetition with intention. Saving once changes nothing. Saving consistently, even small amounts, changes everything. When you repeat the behavior, your brain starts recognizing it as normal. And when something becomes normal, it becomes effortless. The biggest reason you've struggled until now is that you rely on motivation instead of systems. Motivation fades. Systems create momentum. Momentum sustains transformation. The second element is tracking your own progress, not obsessively but consciously. You need visible proof of your evolution, because progress you can't see feels like progress that doesn't exist. Track your savings growth. Track your reduction in unnecessary expenses. Track the stability you're creating. This isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. Awareness strengthens discipline. Discipline strengthens identity. Identity sustains transformation. The third element is building resilience against setbacks. You will slip, you will overspend, you will make a dumb decision on a bad day. The difference between people who transform and people who stay stuck is simple. They don't turn one mistake into a month of sabotage. When you fall, you reset quickly. You don't use failure as permission to desistir du plano. You use failure as informação. A setback isn't evidence of incompetence. It's evidence that you're human. But getting back on track is evidence that you're committed. The fourth element is upgrading your environment. You can't build a new life surrounded by the same triggers that built the old one. You need barriers that protect your money, routines that protect your focus, and habits that protect your progress. Transformation happens faster when your environment stops te puxando para baixo e começa a te empurrar para frente. That might mean setting rules for spending, removing temptations, or automating more parts of your financial system. And here's the final truth of this chapter. Momentum becomes transformation the moment your habits start operating, even on days you don't feel like it. That's when you break the identity of someone who tries and become someone who is. The shift that redefines your future. This is the point where everything you built stops being theory and becomes identity. Financial freedom doesn't arrive in a dramatic moment. It arrives in the quiet consistency of someone who finally understands that money responds to structure, not hope. You've seen the traps, confronted your patterns, built stability, expanded your capacity, and created momentum. Now, the question is simple. Will you continue o ciclo antigo ou vai assumir o controle definitivo da sua vida financeira? Because transformation only becomes real when you decide that the way you used to live is no longer an option. Living paycheck to paycheck always felt like a life sentence because you never had a framework that actually held. Now you do. You understand how to protect your money, how to make decisions with clarity, how to cut what doesn't serve you, how to automate, how to create margins, and how to grow even when the numbers don't look impressive yet. That's the truth people rarely hear. You don't need a huge income to start your transformation. You need commitment, self-honesty, and a system that forces your money to work for you instead of against you. The real shift happens when you realize that saving isn't a sacrifice. It's strategy. Discipline isn't punishment, it's freedom. Structure isn't limitation, it's leverage. When you internalize that, the guilt disappears. The anxiety diminishes, and the excuses perdem força. Your financial life stops being a battlefield and becomes a construction site. Every action you take, every boundary you set, every dollar you protect is a brick in the foundation of a new reality, one where you're no longer surviving the month, but directing your future. If you want lasting transformation, this is the moment you stop leaning on motivation and start leaning on identity. You are no longer someone who reacts to money, you are someone who leads it. And when identity changes, results follow. This is your turning point. The moment where you stop hoping for stability and start building it deliberately, consistently, and consciously.